this wonderful modular patch bay over here. After showing you all of the huge variety of functionality that's possible through the interesting and unique routing structure of the Nyx, we're not even close to done. There's so much more that you can do right over here in the patch panel. Now, certainly you can control the Nyx from your Eurorack system, or control parts of your Eurorack system with your Nyx, either way. So, of course, there are the sort of basic modular patching things that you might want to do that have to do with, typical things that you would expect from a synthesizer. Like, for example, taking the LFO out. Once we put a cable in the LFO jack, it defeats the way that the LFO is hardwired to the frequency of the oscillators. So now the LFO is a free agent. We can put it where we want to. A place that you might want to put it is into the pulse width. Now keep in mind that we only have pulse width on oscillator 1, so you know exactly where that's going to be. So then remember that you have a built-in sort of volume level of the LFO in the depth. So right now we're not hearing anything because the depth of the LFO is at 0. So let's turn that up. So that is how you would get pulse width modulation. You can also do the typical thing. Take the CV out, which is the voltage from the keyboard, and put it into your cutoff point, which will allow you to generate the traditional keyboard functionality, where notes down below have less of an open filter than those up above. So let's generate that outcome. Whoa. The other thing is, once you take a cable out of the LFO jack and the LFO is still on, you're going to get wild frequency modulation. So let's turn that on. Okay, let's get a more standard sound here. So as I move down the keyboard, you can definitely hear that the cutoff point is lower for the lower notes. So that's how you generate the standard, keyboard effect. Now, if you want to, you can always use the LFO for a variety of things that you might expect. Like, you could just route the LFO directly into the filter cutoff. And use that in tandem with other functionality like these modulators. So you can get 3 different LFO modulations occurring at once to the filter. And of course, don't forget that you have not only the cutoff point, the filter cutoff point in general, which applies to both filters, but you can also direct an output. Right now we have the LFO into just one of them. Which would appear to leaving the other one completely unaffected. So that's cool. You can differentiate between the different filters, so you can affect. It really brings forward the fact that there are two filters, which you may not necessarily always have that sense because of the different routing functionality and the fact there's only one control for both. But when you get into the modular sort of application, you can split it up and do different things to different filters. Likewise, you can do different things to different oscillators. So let's take the mod 1 output. Which is this modulation generator here. We're going to put that into CV1. And you could do the same thing to oscillator 2. Let's take the mod 2 output and let's put that into oscillator 2 just to create something crazy. And remember that you can certainly control the amount of that modulation going to the oscillators in this case by using your level amount. And if you wanted everything to just go absolutely crazy, you could always take the LFO out and then control the overall CV with the LFO out. So that's going to create something interesting, I think. And keep in mind, you can't see that I just did this, but I was just playing the two different frequencies, the two different oscillators with two different notes because it's always duophonic. So you can also control the frequencies of these oscillators while we're thrashing them independently with modulators, overarchingly with an LFO. So you have all of that going on. And that's just with 3 patch cables. Okay.